Hello everybody, this is Fernando for the latest Aliens and UFOs video. I thought I would continue the theme associated with talking about close encounters that people have had with both aliens and UFOs. The first video that I did a couple of days back, it got a good number of views. People definitely liked it in terms of the likes and then posted a lot of good comments. So I thought, why not? Why not just share another video here where we talk about 4 more scary encounters that people have had with both aliens and UFOs. And as always, this comes from the reddit.com website here from a subreddit called The Truth Is Here. I'd love to hear what your comments are afterward too with some of these entries, and then I'll post my own comments here. So in this case, the very first entry comes from a user by the name of Sidhi Vicious. They wrote this about 3 years ago, and essentially here's what they had to state. A few years ago, I want to say 2010 or the thereabouts, I'm not exactly sure, I was taking evening classes at a local community college. It being winter and the class starting at 7 meant it was dark by the time I left the house, and across from our house is a vacant lot and an empty field with a pair of radio or cell towers in the distance. We are almost directly on a flight path from the local airport, and we do get the occasional military helicopter flyover courtesy of the nearby Marine base. Point being, I know what all these things look like and sound like even at night. So I was somewhat confused by the sight one night of a steady white light above the cell towers. It wasn't moving or blinking, and it was too bright to be a star. I watched it for maybe a half a minute and then shrugged and got back in my car. Probably a logical explanation, and I had places to be. So a few minutes later, as I'm driving through the neighborhood, I see this light again, closer this time. What's more, it seems to be moving in my direction. I'm curious enough as to what it is, so I put the car in park and then get out for a look. It's hard to judge size as it is a black object against a black background, maybe bus size if it was right above the treetop level, far, far larger if it was any higher. There are these bright, steady white lights laid out in a triangular pattern on each corner of it. And as I watch, it drifts. That's the first word that comes to mind, and still, I think is the best way to describe it. It drifts slow and steady across the road in front of my car, smooth, unhurried, at a walking pace. There is no noise, no sound of an engine or disturbing the trees if it flies over. This object is completely silent. That is what really got me about it. I mean, our brain can still process what I was seeing, but the sheer fact that something this big could be that quiet was what threw me off. It takes about 30 seconds to drift across the road and disappear behind the trees, and that's the very last I saw of it. And then that's pretty much it. That's everything that City Vicious had to state about their encounter. So lots of good info to mention here. For starters, this happened in the dead of night. So here you have a situation where it was hard to see at least what this thing looked like. As he described it, it was pretty much black on black background. But he was able to gauge somewhat of the size if it was based on a height level. So if it was close by, it was the size of a bus. If it was further away, again, hard to tell because of the night distance, then it could have been much, much larger. But here we have another situation where they mention where the actual aircraft, whatever it was dead silent. There was nothing in terms of any noise coming from it. I mentioned this in some of my past videos too, how something so large can glide essentially across the sky either slow or very fast in certain situations and then be just very, very quiet. Not a single noise associated with it. And it had the telltale size of it, the shape of it involving a triangle. A little bit rarer when it comes to the world of UFOs, but I have mentioned that in the past too as far as triangles. It's interesting. Like I've always wondered when it comes to UFOs why some of them are circular, other ones are more blocks, and then in this case, this one is a triangle. So that's pretty much it again for that particular encounter. Next one comes from a user by the name of Scott Sierra, and they wrote this about 3 years ago, and here's what they have to say. In this case, it's multiple encounters. They state, I've seen several. I don't know if they were alien, but they were unidentified flying objects, all right. First, when I was a kid and I was already into UFOs, mom, family friend, and I were driving home from visiting family who incidentally had a big book on UFOs and aliens that I read a lot. We were on a rural 2-lane road with scattered houses and no street lights. A ways ahead, a motorcycle came around the curve and headed towards us, but it was driving on the center lane. We never heard an engine or saw anything but its white headlight. And then when it got close, it went up and went over our car. I looked out the back window but didn't see anything go behind us or any light shining on anything. I was really excited. Second encounter was over a distant ridge when I was a teen. On the immediate other side of this ridge is a very large public airport. An enormous fan of red-orange light would dim up, stop, and dim out, very mechanically, and it was followed by this xenon white strobe, also in a fan shape, fast but irregular. They kept repeating, sometimes overlapping, and so I got my mom out to see it too, and I went to get on the roof for a better view, but saw it no more. My mom said that after I went around the house, a glowing orange bar appeared on the horizon. Think of a nearly setting sun, but rectangular. Its right end stretched out across the horizon, and then the left end followed, kind of like a Star Trek ship going into warp. And last year I saw a video from Florida, the same exact thing, minus my mom's ending occurrence. And then I've seen several satellites with this thing satellites can't do, like say making a right turn angle, or I look back and it's going the other way now. I've also seen what I thought was a star just suddenly blink out. I was out in the evening drawing. I've seen the stars before on paper. I've drawn them on paper, and one was now missing from the sky versus what I drew. And then there was one in the middle of nowhere, Arizona, around 5 or 6 years ago. Parents and I were driving, and out in the front we saw a row of moonlight lights blink on the left, to the right, hold, and then blink off in the same order. Their arrangement suggested a tilted sphere or a disc, and this was years after the Phoenix lights and didn't look like them. And what we saw were round, hazy at the edges, orangey white, didn't move at all. I illustrated one, though I think what I saw was more white with a golden center. Then that's it. That's everything that this Scott Sierra mentioned as far as their multiple encounters. Here you can see one that really scared him had to do with the fact that this thing, smallish in other words, if it was something along the lines of a motorcycle, was almost coming like as a head-on crash towards their vehicle. And then all of a sudden, like straight out of the movie, it just went up straight into the sky and never appeared behind the car. So presumably it just went up and up and up, and it was never ever seen again. Talk about a freaky encounter when it comes to that. Plus, he mentioned several similar themes involving most of these happening out there in the middle of nowhere. Here you have a situation where once again, desolate places, like he said, scattered houses, street lights, fields, and nighttime, all of that equals a perfect recipe when it comes to seeing something out there. I don't know why, but UFOs seem to definitely have that type of theme. Like they love enjoying doing this out in the middle of nowhere, as opposed to, let's say, in the middle of Austin or New York City, something along those lines. But yeah, those are some of the encounters associated with it, with what he has here. And it was interesting too that he knows the situation so well that he's even drawn some of these things, especially when it comes to the stars, and then realizing that things change afterward as far as these quote-unquote stars moving about and in some cases disappearing. Interesting stuff. So next one that we're going to talk about here comes from a user by the name of Rygen Journo. They wrote this also about 3 years ago, and here's essentially what they have to state. I haven't told this until now, but believe what you want to believe. I was on my way home from my friend's house on my bike one Saturday around 3 a.m. It's kind of a routine that I hang out every weekend, and I was about 200 meters away from my house. So I dismount and walk since it was a long way back and my legs were tired pedaling. And as I'm walking, I hear this constant low synth fast pulsing sound that really shook me. There were no cars or anything around, so I look up and I see 3 dots in the shape of a triangle. And at first I pass it off as stars, but I can see slight marks and edges and also low dimmed lights inside the triangle, unlike just a black void. The object from my perspective looked pretty big and about 100 meters from the ground. So this sound gets louder and made me stunned, unable to move. And this was about maybe 6 seconds or so, and my hand was still holding the bike handle like I'm being shocked. with a taser, which is a red flag for me to get away from this thing. Trying my best to move, I jumped on my bike with all these questions raising in my head. What about, was that a UFO? Am I going to get abducted? Why couldn't I move? Was it out of unknown fear? I was getting some fire in the sky movie imagery out of this fear of this unknown object, and didn't want to stick around and take my chances if what I saw was the real deal. So I bolted to my house, and to this day never encountered any unknown objects since. So this was something that was hard to bring out, since I was solely believed it could just be passed off as delusional. But posting my experience here might give me some peace of mind. Thanks for taking the time to read this. And that's it. That's essentially everything that the user Rajan Journal posted on there. And a little bit shorter, but still pretty scary encounter. Here you have a situation where once again it's another triangle UFO. This time though, he believes that something occurred to him. Almost did, but at least it was almost like halfway there, because he was unable to move. It's like it was stunned in his approximate words, like he was unable to move at all for about 6 seconds straight, and he instantly had those flashbacks to that very scary movie Fire in the Sky. I've seen it. I'm sure you've seen it too. We never want to have anything like that happen, right, when it comes to these type of encounters. But here it was situated with him. Another triangle UFO, very large blackish void, dim lights throughout it as well. He knew that something was there, and those that mechanical sound, almost like that throbbing sound, that pulsing sound that it was making, no doubt amplified the situation too. I wonder what happened to him, like in terms of him being able to now move after about 6 seconds. Was it just his body finally having enough endorphins or something in there to be able to just kickstart, or was it something else, like the UFO released him, so to speak, when it comes to its encounter? Was there even anything associated with that too? I'd love to hear what everyone's comments are with regards to that. But yeah, pretty scary encounter. I would definitely get out of there too as soon as possible. And again, this happened in the dead of night just by himself. And then the last one here happens to be with another user. This one is a nameless user. I guess they're no longer there on the Reddit website. One of the shortest ones there, but this is what they state. Okay, so I was around 5 at the time in Klamath Falls, Oregon, with me and my brother and my sister and my brother's friend. We were sleeping on the trampoline in the backyard, and in the desert of Oregon, you see a lot of stars, and a few of them move around, but that's not it. Not the UFO we saw. We were all asleep when our friend woke up, and when he saw something at the skyline in the city, there was a giant spaceship in the sky with lights, and it was amazing. It was there for about 30 seconds, and we were yelling, so our dad came up by that point, but it was 100% gone. And then that's it. That's everything that this user mentioned there in their encounter. Again, super short and sweet, but I wanted to include it here because it gives another location, in this case Oregon, Klamath Falls. So if someone has more personal experience there, maybe you might have a situation where you have like a friend, family member, coworker, maybe you even live there in Klamath Falls. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are in terms of this encounter, like if there's more UFO encounters there. And then this was the largest one yet between all of the 4 encounters. As they described it, it was a gigantic spaceship, and it was nearby the skylines, but it was still nighttime, so there wasn't really much to see. But that's pretty much it. Those are the 4 more scary encounters associated with the aliens and UFOs. If anybody has anything else I might have missed, then please post those comments below. Maybe some of you have more local experiences. I'll hear what those comments are. And as always, thank you so much for your viewership, and I'll be doing more of these soon. All right, everybody. Thanks again as always. Take care.